Hello, this is Mike Swanson. I run the website WallStreetWindow.com, and I want to talk with you today about what Senator Warren was saying about Jerome Powell on Monday. She launched essentially an attack on him and Federal Reserve policies. And there's a lot of reasons to criticize what the Federal Reserve has done over the past couple years. Her attacks are coming from what are essentially the left. I want to analyze her arguments and what's going on here, but we're in a tough time. We have high inflation in the economy. It appears that economic growth is stalling out. The first quarter saw a negative GDP print. You saw what happened in the second quarter. That news just came out. Now, the technical definition of a recession is two negative GDP prints, quarterly GDP prints. But there are people out there saying, that's technical and everything's fine because the unemployment rate's low. Well, the unemployment rate is low because there is indeed a shortage of people in the workforce. You can see that when you go to stores and restaurants, a lack of customer service because in hiring signs all over the place. So it is a unique economic situation. But look, the stock market has been falling this year. Interest rates have been going up, and all this inflation is exploding. Before we get into the nitty gritty of Warren, let me explain one of the things I do. I run put out a completely free news digest every single morning. You can click below this video and scroll down to subscribe to it. And in my Tuesday update, you see I put links to my articles and articles from all over the internet that I think you need to know about. That's why you need to subscribe. But these headlines kind of explain the situation that's going on, and Warren shows up in them. So look, Walmart issued a profit warning saying that inflation is smashing consumers, making them buy fewer items. Amazon stock dropped on that news too. They sell to, they're a consumer company too. Weber Grill Company, they announced they warned of layoffs because they're selling fewer grills. They fired the CEO, and they announced that they're now facing historic economic challenges. Analysis said it's because of the drop in household spending. Those are all signs of economic weakness. And while that's happening, the Fed is raising rates last month, this month, set to do it again in September and going into the end of the year. Elizabeth Warren it was highlighted for what she said Monday in a Fortune article, and also the Wall Street Journal did multiple stories about it, saying that these rate hikes are going to make the economic situation worse on people, and it's hurting Robinhood traders. It's hurting stock market players who benefited for years from the zero interest rates that helped stimulate the stock market, and now they're getting punched almost every single month, beaten down. So here she's coming out to try to speak on the part of people who are getting hurt. The problem is the inflation is hurting things just as much worse than the falling stock market. And it's hard to argue that we're really in an awful recession and even a little bit negative GDP growth. At this point, the inflation is more damaging. Look, the inflation is causing a collapse in Biden's poll numbers. And the odds of the Democrats in November keeping the House and the Senate are only 11%. Those odds have collapsed from where they were a year ago. I mean, those odds are pretty pitiful. It's only a 34% chance that they're going to hold on to the Senate. This is what people are betting on the Predictic website with their own money that's going to happen. These are essentially the betting odds. So it's a dismal situation, and the inflation's been a disaster. So keep that in mind. But Axios, I linked to this article that kind of set the stage about Warren. He was talking about the Warren story and her attack on the Fed. And she wrote an editorial in the Wall Street Journal saying that the rate hike in July is going to trigger a risk, triggering a devastating recession. Those are her words. And she claims that this is going to be ineffective against what she argues are the causes of inflation. The Ukraine war, the shortage of energy and food due to the Ukraine war. And the article says that she's speaking out for many on the left who are not thrilled with the Fed raising rates because it's going to hurt low-wage workers in their view. However, some Republicans and a few Democrats like Larry Summers have blamed Powell for not acting fast enough in raising the rates to stop inflation. And I want to argue that with you, it's not really an argument. It's just pointing out what's happened. Look, the argument that the Ukraine war caused all the inflation that you're experiencing is not true. Her argument is false. And the reason why I say that is because if you can think back to the first quarter of 2021, what was being said then? What was being said then was that inflation was going to appear in the economy in that spring and then go away. The Biden administration was saying that. Jerome Powell was saying that. A lot of stock market gurus, such as Kathy Wood, were saying that. And what happened? Well, inflation did not go away. In fact, inflation began to pick up clearly by September. All the predictions were false. Each month, just about, inflation went up higher and higher and higher and higher throughout 2021. Before the Ukraine war even began, and as the inflation ticked up, what happened? Powell's poll ratings went down. Biden's poll ratings went down. The Democratic odds of taking the House and the Senate this November also began to go down. And that rate of decline in those poll numbers and political odds just accelerated to the downside to we're at the point now where it seems pretty much hopeless for the Democrats to win this November. Why? The inflationary situation is a tax on consumers. When the gas prices go up at the gas pump, it makes it it's a horrible cost for people. They've got to cut back on something to pay for the additional money they're spending at the grocery store just to eat and at the gas tank just to drive. So that's what they're doing. They're buying fewer rubber grills. They're buying fewer items on Amazon. This is what's going on, and there's no way to stop it except to stop inflation. And this inflation was happening before the Ukraine war even began. So that argument's not true. And yes, the Ukraine war may have made it worse. It exacerbated the so-called supply line issues, but they're not the cause of the underlying cause of inflation. What is? Well, what history shows is that super low interest rates, artificially low interest rates, cause the money supply to take off, and that all that money, it doesn't go in people's pockets. The money supply, it comes into the economy from companies, and individuals can borrow money and use it to buy real estate. but it doesn't go directly into consumer pockets to spend. It goes to corporate coffers. It goes to individuals who are taking loans out. The mechanism is the banking system and the financial system. And a lot of that money also goes into the financial markets. So you saw a mega stock market rally when the Fed took rates to zero after the shutdowns are announced. The market dumped 33%. They took rates to zero. They announced an unlimited quantitative buying operation. The stock market exploded in 2020 through basically the summer of 2021, and that hot money helped fuel it. Yeah, some people benefited. People opened up Robinhood accounts and rode that up. But now, the inflationary effects began to trickle into the real economy and impacting people in a negative way. And the Fed has to react to that. And it did by the only tool it has to stop inflation, the only tool that's ever worked to stop inflation. That is raising interest rates. And historically, inflation does not truly come down and be smashed until the Federal Reserve interest rate is higher than the inflation rate. Well, it's still way below it. Because last month, inflation came in, annualized CPI, around 9%. So this is a situation with no easy solutions. And sad to say, I think Warren is scapegoating the Fed and giving people an easy story. Oh, they're tightening too much. The real problem is Ukraine. So think it's not my fault. It's not Biden's fault for supporting these monetary policies, and the Republicans did too. Trump supported the low rate policies. When the Fed took rates to zero in April or in March of 2020, he had a press conference cheering that. And he didn't say anything ever through the rest of his term about the need to raise rates to stop the inflation. So here we are. And I'm just telling you that, one of the problems with Warren and these left arguments is that some of it is based on this so-called modern monetary theory, which he's been a proponent of, that low rates don't matter, low rates don't cause inflation. Well, think about what you've seen in the past 2 years. It's a myth. You've seen that in your real life. And don't let these people try to rewrite history of what you've experienced yourself. The Ukraine war is not the sole cause of all this inflation. What you're saying there isn't correct. The problem, though, that we face is, like I say, there's no easy solutions. And if the economy does worsen and slow down, then they are going to come under political pressure. But as I wrote a few weeks ago in an article, and you subscribe to my email list, you'll get all my articles or links to them, so then you can read them and know that they're up. The Federal Reserve is doing something that it's not done in just about everyone's experience that's trading the markets, and not since 1980. It's raising rates without much care about what that's doing to the stock market. Since 1987, there's been what has been called a Federal Reserve put. Whenever the stock market fell 20%, the Fed has lowered rates. In fact, when the stock market only fell 10% in 2011, Ben Bernanke came out and engaged in a quantitative easing operation and wrote a story in the Wall Street Journal saying that this is a thing to do to help the stock market go up. Just a 10% dip. And now, in the last time the stock market fell over 20%, 2020, they reacted. 2018, it fell 20% in that fall, and they were trying to raise rates and tighten, and then they abandoned and shifted and did a rate cut a few months later. But this time they're saying, we're not going to do that because we can't, because now we have something different that we didn't have in those up to now, and that's high inflation, which is causing real problems in the economy, bigger than stock market dips. It's causing political and social turmoil too. Inflation causes huge issues in society. Where as the stock market just affects people who are heavily invested in it and speculators, inflation affects everybody, and inflation must be defeated for the economy to return to a really healthy situation. And it's going to take a long time for that to happen. And that's reality. Scapegoating, will not change that. And she's not going to be the last politician that does it. And if that type of messaging picks up, then it's an uncertain situation how this is all going to really play out. But we're in different times. If you're a stock market investor or trader, you've seen the market trade differently than you ever have before. And I did a video about how the VIX is trading differently than it ever did before just yesterday. And the VIX is the fear volatility index. It spikes up when there is panic and fear in the markets, which tends to coincide with stock market bottoms. Well, this year, the stock market has fallen for 7 months in a bear market, and the VIX has yet to register a panic bottom. I've never seen the stock market fall like that without their measuring a panic bottom that triggers at least a bear market rally for that long. So it's an unusual situation. And what do people do? It's tough, man. It's a tough time trying to paying off your debts, saving money, building cash reserves. If you're an investor, that's the thing to do and focus on, and just be patient about buying stocks, even when people keep telling you that every up day or every bounce that lasts a week is the bottom, until there's a real panic washout in the market. Being cautious is the thing to do. Well, if you like this content, hit like, and then YouTube will show this video to other people. If you're brand new to my YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button and then hit the bell next to that, and YouTube will send you an alert as soon as my next video is up. And all that said, I'll be talking with you later.